Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Shadow and Bone. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, last episode I said oh man, quite a bit went down, and it did feel like a lot happened. Feels like it even more so in this episode, but I wonder is that just because most of the Kerrigan stuff was resolved in the first first fourth of this episode, and the rest was just closing all these other chapters and setting up the next chapters. Because I don't know what the breakdown of what the books are. Was the first season the entire first book because it's a trilogy of novels, or could the season 1 and season 2 be the entire first novel? Because it almost feels like this season finale felt like the ending of a book. But to be fair, season 1's felt like that too, so that's why I'm wondering, is it kind of like his Dark Materials? Because the way someone kind of basically explained it, each one of those seasons is basically one of the books in that trilogy, so I'm wondering is the same thing happening here, because it feels like a whole new start in compare. Season 1 felt like it could have been the new chapter, in the story, but kind of the next book. This one in particular feels like the most. So that's why I'm curious what the breakdown of the books are, having never read the books and only know the story through the show so far. So I don't know. Someone who's more well versed in the books could probably explain that to me of how much of how this breaks down and how it compares to what seasons are the parallels between the books and the seasons. Like I said, is it just is it on par of season 1 is the first book, season 2 is the second book, or is it kind of season 1 and 2 are the first book? I'd love to know that. I'll probably have to look into it on my own later to potentially get some answers. But yeah, immediately picking up in the aftermath of where things left off, we have Alina having to make that sacrifice, and it's right, I'm already dying, we have to make this count, it's now or never, and Alina has to kill Mal, takes on the power, and she destroys the fold. At the right time, too, considering, the Volcra doing their thing, Kaz and Nikolai and the crew, they all made their way into the fold, avoiding and dealing with the Volcra, while trying to find Alina and the others, and then they get trapped in a room with one of Kerrigan's shadows. But even when the fold comes down, which is so impressive to look at that, it's just wow. And when you see the ground that's basically scarred on where the fold was, the shadows didn't disappear because they're not tied to the fold. They're specifically tied to Kerrigan, and him having that moment of exceptional, beautiful, seeing what Alina was able to do. And honestly, for him, it's cool, this is all resolved. Now I need you to keep me around because I'm the monster. Let me be the monster in your story, because he's basically saying, you are light, you need my darkness, or there is no balance. Because it all comes down to, if I'm not around, if you don't have me around to be the bad guy, I have everyone's hatred and everything. You are seen as a hero, but for now, if I'm removed from the board, eventually it'll start looking at you as the monster, because you will be, right, you will be, at least she exists to stand up against the Darkling that is Kerrigan. But it's right, once he's removed from the board, the only powerful being, she'll be the only of her kind. Is right, there's the loneliness of it, but also the targetedness of, you are completely different. You are the Sun Summoner. How can we really stop you, considering we've also got 3 amplifiers from the mythical creatures? So, and at the same time this is all happening, Nina is trying to resurrect Mal, while Zoya and Naj are doing their thing, taking care of the shadow creatures. So I wonder, is there fully a finite amount of them? Because it's not like he summoned them endlessly. So maybe those creatures aren't just something that he can shadow clone jutsu this, where he can make as many as possible. There probably are finite amount of them. Maybe, or is it just because his condition is so bad, he doesn't have the strength to summon or make anymore? Who knows? But ultimately, it is this thing of, for him, it's like, oh, for a moment, I felt like I did find peace. Despite everything, he did actually have feelings for Alina. Alina's the closest thing. Because let's not forget, like, what originally started all this was his love for someone. And just like Mal and Alina have their complicated thing, it's like, he fell in love with someone too. Granted, Alina was in love with just a normal person. Mal, well, obviously we found out he's a lot more, but Kerrigan was in love with a healer and another Grisha, and we know how that story played out, and that's what drove him to be consumed by anger, and even going down Marizova's journal, and even using Merzast that ended up creating the Fold and the Volcra. But for him, that one moment of peace after all those years was with Alina. And as he's feeling that and he's thinking about it, Alina kills him. He's like, right, please, like, don't let there be a piece of me left. Because it's twisted to say, but legitimately, Alexander Kerrigan has been trapped in his own nightmare. He's been the maker of his own nightmare. He's caused so much pain. He's done so much. And it's just kind of like, right, all he could do was just keep going down the path, and just every time he kept going down the path, he was making more and more mistakes. He also has nothing left. His mom is gone. He'll have to walk through this world alone, because even Mal had told him, it's like, the difference between you and me is like, I will die in Alina's arm. You will die with no one, because there's no one by your side. All your loyal subjects got murked last episode, so you literally have no one to accompany but your shadows, which they try to protect him from Alina, but he stopped them because, like, he was like, right, or tried to, but he can't control them. He never could. They always acted on their own instinct. They are bound by, like, yes, like, if he's feeling threatened or whatever, we'll react, but he doesn't actually control us. They kind of have their own autonomy. But yeah, for him, it's like, right, don't leave any bit of me left for someone to try and take what I have and try to use me as an amplifier. Or like, so if you want this completely going, this chapter closed forever, I have to be dead. There has to be nothing of me left. So he ends up dying under the blue skies. I think for the first time, he found peace again, fully being able to finally let go of, like, all that he's carried, like, all that anger, all that loneliness, everything that he's carried for these centuries. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm kind of like, yeah, who knows what your life could have been if you hadn't, like, gotten consumed down the path you were. But, it's too late to be thinking about that beyond redemption. But, yeah, Nina's trying to bring Mal back to life, but Alina ends up doing the one thing she promised Bagger she would do. But, of course, we all knew she was going to do it. She uses Merzos to bring Mal back to life. And even Nina at that moment was like, she didn't know what she had done, but Nina was like, whoa, that wasn't me, that was you. But my immediate thought was, well, we don't know what that's going to do to Mal, because Mal may be like a normal human being, but he still stems from, like, the Merizova bloodline. But now that he's no longer the Firebird, everything that he went into Alina, it begs the question, is he just kind of a regular person now? Like, everything that was kind of special about him, is it completely gone now? We don't know. And her using Merzos to bring him back, I mean, you literally reached across the veil and brought him back. I mean, we know that's what created the bloodline in the first place, but to be fair, Mal already had that special bloodline, so bringing him back... I was about to say, because we know, like, Merzova brought his own daughter back, one of his daughters, but that obviously even brought back the Sea Whip and the stab, but we don't, it seems right for right now, they didn't really lean into it, but it seems like right now, Mal just seems normal, like he's nothing special, and that's also the complication, because for Mal, he's like, yeah, he felt his true north for so long, but now all that he was, who he was, is all gone. And now he's like, I'll never fully know whether or not why did I walk past those 3 orphanage just to end up at the one? Why did I stop at the one you were at? That was it really just us finding our way to each other time and time again? Was it us just falling in love, or was this destiny? How much was choice? How much was destiny? And I kind of touched on that a little bit last episode of like everything was kind of bringing you together, and it kind of undermines that for Mal because he doesn't know. I mean, for one, this was his purpose. And I was like, my purpose in life was to be with you, and I did that. I brought you the power you needed, but now, like, where am I next? Like, I don't feel that pull. And that obviously comes with its complications, but for him and Alina, it's like, because it's like how you have to start second guessing everything that you've ever felt about her. It's like, how do I know what I felt for you is real? So I have to go live my life. You have to do everything that you're doing with the Second Army, with leading Ravka in the right direction. I have to go live my life. Because initially he was going to be one of her guards, but she's like, no, I don't want to bind your life to mine. Go out there and live your own life. And it's like, right, who knows who we will end up being once we walk down these different paths of ours. And when the time comes and we come back together, who knows we'll be in that moment. But maybe then and there, we'll know for sure how much of what we feel is real and that it was kind of meant to be, not in a destiny sense, but because we choose for it to be, you know. So it's that choice versus destiny situation. And we'll see where things kind of end up for them. But I do love that. I was like, so what's next for Mal? Because once again, my early prediction was like, oh, is he going to lead the First Army or something like that? It's like, no, he's actually going to go off doing the pirateering situation. He's the new Stormhold, because I love that, like, he's like, oh, I found a perfect name for you. I'm like, oh, so you're just giving him your name. But Mal's going to fill that void, because he's like, the world needs a Stormhold. And the fact of the matter, but it's like, I can't be the captain. Oh, no, you're not going to be the captain. Toya and Tamar are going to be the captains. You're just kind of like the face of the whole operation, but maybe along that journey, along that way, he finds new resolution and new purpose in life, you know? So they're going along with, because obviously Naja is going to go along with Tamar, and Adric, her brother, staying behind. He's like, yeah, the ground is kind of where I'm meant to be. It's got to be hard for Nikolai, because it's like, right, he's enjoyed that life, and now it's kind of the inverse of he has to pass his life on to Mal, and staying by Alina's side, which is where Mal was so supposed to be, is where Nikolai is. So now they've kind of switched places to some extent. And it's like, Mal knows he's not the enemy, and being like, right, Nikolai never was the enemy, but it's like, this is kind of where he needs to be, where Alina needs to be, and this is where I need to be until I figure things out for myself of what's next for me. Because also for Nikolai, it's like, right, I also need Stormhold out there, because I also need to keep an eye on the other countries out there. The freedom of the pirateer kind of gives you, that freedom that Nikolai no longer can enjoy. He has to be adherent to his role as the, upcoming king. So some other little bits and pieces that kind of connect everything all together. Nina obviously is trying to figure out, like, she wants her, because she had told Kaz, like, there are two people who are willing to do whatever it takes to basically get their happily ever after, and people who are just kind of letting it go. And protecting the people you love and everything, and doing whatever you can, scraping to get to your happily ever after. And obviously that resonates heavily with Nina and Kaz, who are in very complicated situations with the people that they care about. In his case, Inej; in her case, Matthias. I even love that you have Jesper be like, oh yeah, they'll be telling tales of us, the four, bandits of Ketterdam. But it's like, there's not four of us, there's five. And turns to Nina, and he's like, the five of... I was like, because at first I was like, are we going to do like the six of Crow? But it's like, there's not six of them, there's only five of them. But I was wondering if that was supposed to be a play into it. I wonder where does this six come from of Six of Crows? Because once again, I didn't know this until I did my nerd mode on it, because I didn't know this going into season 1. This series is based on 2 different books that are set in the same universe, the Shadow and Bone books and the Six of... Like, all the Kaz stuff, all the Kaz and the Crow stuff is probably pulled directly from the Six of Crows stuff, but they kind of melded it. Rather than there being 2 separate series, they're all... both series kind of jumbled together. I wonder, did they play out exactly like that? Did Kaz and his crew play the roles that they play in the show in the book, or did they just do that because they have access to both stories? So it's like, rather than having all this Kaz and Crow stuff being a completely separate thing that's kind of on its own island, let's fold it into the main plot. Like, that's what I'm curious if it worked like that in the books as well. But Kaz had this conversation with Inej, and when the time came, well, it turns out he's actually been looking for her brother, like, probably, I mean, he never gave her an answer, because she was like, he's like, yeah, this is where you'll start, like, looking at these slavers. And she's like, how long you've been looking for my family? How long have you been doing that? And for a very long time. And he never told her that he was doing this because he's like, right, you should go out there. You should start looking for your brother. Because it's like, my brother is never coming back. Doesn't mean yours can't, you know? So it's like, you got to go out there and find him. But it's like, honestly, it's like, what do you want? And Kaz still in the end couldn't bring himself to say it. You know, he's like, right, to be buried on the mountains of gold and stuff like that. But when Inej was about to walk away, he's just like, I didn't want another dream. I want you. And she's like, and how are you going to have me fully clothed, wearing your gloves? She's like, I want you, Kaz, without all your armor. But if I can't have you that way, then I won't have you at all. And kind of walks away and just like, because Kaz just can't let go of that past. He can't let down that armor just yet. And it's just like, man, you were just hoping. But I think there's still hope for them. I think it's all going to work out. And Nej ends up joining the Sturmold and all that, you know. And I think it fits very nicely, her kind of doing the pirate life. I mean, it also gives her the opportunity to look for her brother. So all those adventures out at sea and even in the sky they'll be having. I do feel like they might have been setting up, I don't know, like that look Toya gave Inej when he was helping her up on the boat. He was almost kind of like, hey. Like, I don't know whether that's just kind of like, well, glad to have you for the ride, or is that going to be setting up a potential situation there? I don't know. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that. I had skipped over it, but Kerrigan's body getting burned, that our trio of Zoya, Alina, and Jinya ended up being the ones that burned his body. It's like they are the ones that were kind of like manipulated and screwed over the most by Kerrigan, so them being the ones that kind of light his body on fire, especially in Jinya's case, because she was looking for David and couldn't find him and went back to the room he had like put her down the elevator shaft in, or the little elevator for, and there's blood on the walls, and she tries to find his heartbeat, but she can't. Goes back to like her room and her stuff, or it might even have been David's stuff, but she found the gemstone. Why he was asking about the gemstone, because he wanted to put it in a ring. You're like, oh my god, you're like, shut up, stop making this sadder than it already is. It's heartbreaking, because like for 2 episodes they had such a cute thing, and especially because we knew even back in season 1 Jinya had a thing for David and David had one for her. And it's like, yeah, we wanted to make this as gut-wrenching as possible, as heartbreaking and as tragic as possible, but once again for him it's like he'd gladly sacrifice himself because he was able to do it for her this time, to keep her safe. He knew that she'd be able to survive and be strong to be able to survive all this because of this, the steel that exists inside of her, you know. And I do like that we are making that trio the triumphant. God, what was it Zoya called them? Wasn't it the triumvirate? Making them that trio that they are. I do really like setting that up as like kind of leaning into that friendship more. Obviously Alina and Zoya didn't start off in the best place, but hey, together we can help make some changes to Ravka. Zoya is going to be in charge of training the Grisha, whereas Jinya is going to basically help turn the palace and everything, going forward into a safe haven for everyone, just regular people as well as Grisha. It's nice to also get to see Zoya kind of have like more of because she's kind of always had that snooty personality, but to see her kind of cut loose a little bit more, have fun, and just kind of still shit talking a little bit, but kind of in a very charming way, where she was kind of a douche in season 1, getting that levity side of her now, kind of getting her to kind of finally, all of them are kind of free for the first time in a long time from everything. I mean, obviously there's still a lot that has to be done. I mean, because even at Kerrigan's like burning of his body, the fact is that Nikolai gave the speech, and it's like, yeah, Ravka can be united as one. It's not going to be the easiest thing, because now they've got to worry about Fjorda to the north, and now that that's gone and they're seeing Ravka kind of come together, it's like, yeah, like once again, and that's something I brought up. It's like, yeah, this Fold stuff is going to be done, but there's still like the beef with Ferda that's going to be an overarching thing that has to be dealt with. And once again, the larger scale of who knows, because the Fold being torn down changes everything, not just for Ravka, and not even just Ravka and Ferda. It changes everything around the world. The map to the world is about to be rewritten. Not about to, has been rewritten, and it's what that means in the grand scheme of things. Nikolai is talking to Home Dude, who I completely forgot about. But yeah, they did talk about he was kind of running things. I think they kind of insinuated that last season after everything kind of went down with Kerrigan. That, yeah, like he was kind of running things. Because he was in like maybe 2 episodes last season. He's only in this 1 episode this season. But it's like, yeah, he talks about something about Nikolai, about like, oh, being on the throne, you can't have any secrets. Which I'm like, a couple episodes back, before the episode Vasily died, he was about to get in front of everyone, and it sounded like he was about to spill some kind of secret. I don't know if it was just like, oh, everything between him and Elena is a complete and utter BS, this is some fraud, or whether there's some other secret about Nikolai that he hadn't said anything about. Then we had the ending reveal where it turns out Nikolai is one of Kerrigan's Nishvoye, is inside of him. Now, not less we're going to, like, because even he was shot by, so first part of me was like, wait, has this been some big secret you've had the entire time? Like, there's something more to you? But it's like, no, I think because he was wounded at the time when the Nishvoye, like, had him, it, like, implanted a seed inside of him, and now he's not just a normal human, like, because he ended up grabbing the chair and breaking part of it with his bare hand. So maybe he's not human at all anymore. Maybe he's something else entirely. Maybe this thing will eventually take control of him. Like, who knows how that's going to work going forward. Obviously, Elena has no idea about it. No one has any idea about it when it comes to Nikolai. But Home Dude had also made a point about Nikolai not really being... It's like, right, there's going to be people questioning your claim to the throne, because let's not forget, he's not a full-blown, like, he doesn't have his, like, the king's blood. His father was someone else. He has his mother's blood, but he doesn't have, like, the family bloodline. Like, that's why his brother had way more claim to the throne. For one, he was the older brother, but also he was the actual king's son. So that's also, like, a complicated thing there. So there's that, but it's also like, right, Elena's the one that's, it's like, right, you would have never made it this far if it wasn't for your marriage proposal to her. Like, she's the one that actually has all the power. You are kind of nothing status-wise in comparison. And it's like, oh, kind of tell me how you really feel. And it's like, right, I will serve, like, really believe in you as king once you've earned that right. And I think that's still going to be something he's struggling with. He still has a potential, he's still the right person for the job, but his circumstances are a lot more complicated now because of whatever that Nishoy shadow monster situation is going on with him, what that looks like going forward. I don't know. That could easily be like oh man, he's going to have a Hyde and Jekyll, I'm about to say Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of situation going on. Could be where that ends up going. We catch up with the Crows. Currently, now that Inej is gone, it's just Wylan, Jesper, and Nina. Really quickly, when they were facing that shadow monster on their own, I love that Waylon threw like a phosphorus bomb or something, and I love Jesper being like, yes! That's my man. He's like, actually, we've never actually put labels on it, kind of almost being like, is that okay? I was like, I love that. That was so cute. But speaking of Nina, luckily because of Nikolai's help, they were able to... Nina got parted as well as Matthias, but the problem is Matthias was kind of just drowning in his own anger and everything, and so he went to Pekka and it was like, right, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, I just want to get into a fight, I want to feel anything other than what I'm feeling right now. And sadly the timing could not be worse, because Nina showed up with a pardon being like, yo, he needs to be pardoned, we have to stop this, but the guard wouldn't listen, because he's like, the guy, he was a guy that was kind of like, right, didn't want Pekka running things. And he had beef with Pekka. He's the one that Nina was trying to reach out to, like, earlier in the season and stuff, and did reach out to him. But the problem is, I think now that Pekka's, like, running things in a prison, I think he's probably siding more so with Pekka now, kind of has no choice but to. So that's probably why he didn't want to listen to Nina when she's like, I have a seal from the king. But maybe it's also because, well, he wasn't technically the king yet until the ceremony, so they didn't feel the need they had to listen to anything regarding Nikolai. And sadly, Matthias was put into a fight, but he wasn't going to. He was pitted up against wolves, and he refused to fight them because I think not just the Fjordans, but specifically like the Druskell, like they worship the wolves. They see them as kind of like, probably like if you had to make a real life comparison, like how in India cows are sacred. Like I think it's probably a similar thing. And he refused to fight them. And a whole bunch of guards came in, and sadly Matthias fought back, got the snot beat out of him, but also that boy, because the whole point was, hey, he got pardoned as long as he didn't do anything, and now he did, and just further shows how much Pekka's got control in the place, and Nina gets kicked out. You're like, damn, dude, that sucks. It did not. I was scared and worried that was going to play out. If you listen to my last review about how I was scared about how that was going to play out, did not expect that. But she's calling out to Matthias. He's calling out to her, because I think for him, it's like, wait, I was drowning in my own emotions and stuff. But wait, you were here. You are trying to help me. I wasn't willing to listen the last episode because of last time because of my stubbornness. But you were here to help me. Now you're getting dragged away. It's like if I had probably just waited, if I had just reached out instead of closing myself off and giving into my anger about everything. Not wanting to feel what I felt because I felt hurt, I felt betrayed, I felt heartbroken. I think all that made him lead the choices that he made. It's just, once again, it's sad too, considering Nina did everything she could for his sake. So circling back to the Crows really quickly, Kaz, finally has the club back, and he's making a lot of changes. Like, he specifically tells the guy, like, hey, head over to the menagerie and ask any of the ladies that want to work there if they want to work here. It will not be in any, like, prostitution, like, skin trade. It'll only be, like, as not even indentured servants. They will be, like, legitimately paid. They will get salary wages, so... and showing that Kaz is going down a different route, because who knows, before all this, would he have done all that? Kaz wasn't a terrible human being, but he wasn't like a great guy. But I think he's trying to change things, because I think he wants to make himself someone worthy of being with Inej. I think he wants to become a better person, wants to do more. And so we find out that they've gotten hired. We don't know hired by who, but it turns out there was some kind of scientist who made an addictive drug. He ended up escaping after everything popped off. But the problem is Fjorda caught him, and this drug can increase the power of any Grisha, which that's what I thought was so interesting, because I was like, wait, that lady's a Grisha at the end? I'm like, why would they keep her alive? I mean, I guess it's like they brainwashed her and weaponized her. Or maybe it's implying like even regular people can get Grisha powers, which is like, oh, interesting. Like, and a drug can act as an amplifier. I'm like, fascinating, because I was like, the guy they was mentioning, he's like, oh yeah, it was someone from Kirch, but I'm like, it was used as like a disguise for like a lie for like, oh, I want to say like it was when Kaz and the crew were in Shuha. They ended up in that regard, I think I think him and Nina were saying they were from Kirsch or something like that. Maybe that's it, because I was about to say, I don't think we've met the scientist that they were referencing. I guess that's going to be like a new character going forward, potentially. There's also another element of, obviously, Inej had given the sword to Alina, and was like, Alina like would end up returning it to Oval at some point in time. And it's like, she has a lot of reasons to go to Shuhan because that's her home, and at least one of her parents is there. Well, because I think I can't make any assumption. I don't remember if she's like half Shuhan, or is it like, what is she, half Shu, or was it like one parent's Ravka and one parent, because she grew up in Ravka, but everyone was like, oh, she's Shu, but I was like, I think she's half, like, because I earlier on in the season, I remember pointing out like, oh, like she's got the inverse of Tamar and Tolya's situation, but what if she's actually full? I feel like she couldn't. I don't know. I don't know. I actually don't remember like if she is like full or half or whatever. I mean, I know she grew up in Ravka, but so either way, like there's going to be a lot of. I mean, for one, meeting Ovan, considering who she is, kind of in that same status as Alina, plus returning to Blade, but also kind of connecting with her home, especially because the king is trying to find out. Nikolai is trying to see who's going to actually be an ally with him, who's siding with them, Ravka in particular, when it comes to like this beef between them and Fjorda. So how that all plays out is going to be interesting, and having Alina and Shuhan would be really interesting too. But the celebrations, the coronation of Nikolai gets cut short when the lady that's hopped up on the drugs, the Fjordan lady, ends up massively killing 80% of the guests there, and she got close to the top and wasn't killing everyone until Alina used not just a light cut, she used a darkling cut to slice her. And I don't know who caught that or not, but when it's all said and done, you see that smile creep across Alina's face. It's like, oh yeah, she's kind of power tripping, because it's like, I guess it's like, and that's the price that was paid, is that when because she was like, right, let whoever's going to come after me, let them come. But I think the problem is when she casted Merzost, she ended up poisoning herself, and now it's like, right, the Darkling still lives, but inside of you, which makes you even more dangerous, because it's like, right, it was already bad enough. You were the Sun Summoner. You had 3 amplifiers. You're crazy powerful. That's already bad enough. Now people are going to find out, wait, she has the Darkling's powers too? Wait, she might be able to just bring up the fold again. That could definitely put Alina in a very compromising position. But also, she's power tripping and being like, ooh, that power, like, it's there. That darkness started creeping in. And now she has to kind of, I think, balance both out going forward, of like the Darkling in her, a little bit of Alexander that still lives on in her. Like, he kind of passed that on to her. It feels poetic too, considering, like, once again, with Bagra and him gone, there's no other Darklings there. So she was already kind of a special breed just to begin with, being the Sun Summoner, but now she has the only dark Grisha powers as well. So makes her doubly unique. It definitely feels like some Jack stuff, Jack from Jack and Daxter, because, well, Dark Eco for 2, and then 3 he had Dark Eco powers and his Light Eco powers. I know the Dark Eco stuff came back in like a later game, but I don't think the Light Eco stuff ever did, but I could be misremembering. I know that game wasn't made by Naughty Dog, and it also never had the greatest reception. That's why I'm trying to wondering, like, I mean, obviously it might be a thing of concern of Alina might potentially get swayed to the dark side. It's a juggling act right now where things left off. But like I said, that smirk does not instill the greatest thing. You're like, oh, that's bad. And who knows what her meeting with Oval, like whenever they eventually cross paths when it comes to the blade, what that situation could end up being. Like I said, a lot went down in this finale. Like I said, you were kind of closing a lot of chapters while also setting up the next stages. At the time of me recording this, Netflix has not announced whether or not there will be a season 3 of the show. It's been, the show is, at this point in time, it's been over a week. So once again, that's not too out of the norm of like, yeah, unclear. Probably still be a little while. At the time of recording this, I believe the show, at least here in the US, is still in the number 1 spot with their top 10. So I think that's good, but obviously the longer it stays within the top 10s, that's a better chance for the show to get renewed, once again, because it comes down to viewership and all that stuff. So hopefully we get a 3rd season, because I'd love to see where we go. Like I said, I'd love to know also for people who've read the books, like that's why, like I was asking earlier, like where this stacks up in comparison of like where we are in the story compared to where the story beats in the book. So kind of give me a better idea of how much we got of the story left. Like, so for example, like, oh, this is the end of, say for example, the first book. Oh, so we still have at least 2 books to pull through. Because I'm also forgetting, is like, because I brought up, we are adapting this is also adapting the 6 of Crows stuff too. So that has to be considered. There's 2 of those books and there's 3 of the Shadow and Bone. So maybe that means you're adapting a little bit less of the Shadow and Bone, because you're adapting that and the 6 of Crows. So you're not fully adapting either one, so you're kind of going about the story maybe at a slower adaptation pace, because you're combining the 2. So for example, that's why I'm like, maybe season 1 and 2 is the first book in both series, or like I said, that's why I'm so curious to see where it stacks up, just to know how much of the story is left. That would kind of let me know like how many more seasons would, if we're like, if this is like, for example, like maybe the beginning or middle of the 2nd book or something like that, it means we have like a book and a half left. That's the stuff, like I said, that stuff is what I'm curious about. But at the very least, I hope we get a 3rd season, and obviously the story gets to go for as long as it needs to tell the story it needs to. But I'm very, very excited, and hopefully, and hopeful that we'll get a 3rd season, because I'd love to see where all this would take us ultimately in a season 3. What this world looks like now that the fold is gone, but also Alina's new circumstances, and I mean everyone's new circumstances, because there was, once again, there was quite the shuffle that went down with everyone's circumstances at the end of this. So yeah, it's going to be something neat to see in a potential season 3. really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.